On. Good morning. Welcome to the Public Safety and Veterans Subcommittee. I am calling the meeting to order. I have a call to the public and I have two cards. Ken Crane, would you like to come up and speak? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilwoman. I realized that we had several items on the agenda. One of them was body-worn cameras that's been withdrawn. I did want to make a point on that topic, and I'll probably make it again later at future meetings. And the point I want to make is this, is that the Police Association, the police union, is not opposed to body-worn camera technology. We see it as something that more often than not will help the department and help our officers. And it does provide an increased level of transparency. I think there's two things I want to go on record as the union president saying that we should not sacrifice in our pursuit to get this technology, and that is wages and benefits for our officers, especially coming off a 6-year hiatus of taking wage and benefits cuts. And secondly, and equally important, is we cannot sacrifice hiring of officers for this technology. So we're all in favor of implementing it. But I just want to caution that I believe it has to be done so in a way that we can spread the cost out to get the technology without taking undue or unnecessary hits in other areas. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Nowakowski.
Go for it.
Jeannie Ann Summer.
Tilt it down a little bit. Good morning. First, I'd like to say I'm very pleased to have Chief Williams back home with us. Welcome, Chief. And secondly, I realize it's never too early to start talking about the budget. So please remember that we only have 2 graffiti detectives for all of Phoenix. And the detectives and those of us out in the neighborhood fighting against graffiti really need your help, please. Also, we have a graffiti hotline, but unfortunately the detectives lost their clerical help, so there's no one there to answer the phone. And we really we would like the detectives to be out on the streets doing their job. So I can't imagine it costs this much for a call forwarding to one of the detectives on their phone, please. The Community Alliance has given out more than $285,000 in rewards, so we know the hotline works, and we appreciate their support. So if there's some contingency fund or funding source or way you can allow me to start finding private funding, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, sir?
That's it.
That's the end of the call to the public. We have, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of September 27th?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. We also, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of October 12th?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes. We have some informational only. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues need an update on the domestic violence. We've been all updated already. I'm not sure if you want a presentation or not. I don't think there's a need for it. So thank you so much. And then we have also we are on item number 4, police update on hiring.
So good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. We're pleased to provide to you today an update on our hiring efforts, and making that presentation will be the Employment Services. Right. Well, I got to learn to talk a little bit faster in the city of Phoenix, don't I? Providing that update for you will be Commander Brian Lee, and he's over our hiring bureau.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. This report to the Public Safety Veterans Subcommittee will be an update on the Police Department's sworn hiring and recruitment efforts of minority applicants as well as military veterans for information purposes. With the support of Mayor and Council, the Police Department was authorized to begin testing again at the end of 2014 and resumed its hiring efforts in March of 2015 after a freeze of more than 6 years. On September 27th, the Phoenix Police Department presented an update on its hiring efforts and recruitment plan to the Public Safety Veterans Subcommittee. And following this presentation, the committee had requested additional information specific to the Phoenix Police Department's efforts towards the hiring of minority applicants, specifically within the African American and military veterans community. The police department's, here we go. The Phoenix Police Department, in partnership with the city's Human Resources Department, conducts a monthly written exam testing session for the position of police recruit, which is typically held at the Phoenix Convention Center. Applicants that receive a passing score are then invited to participate in a physical agility assessment held monthly at the Police Academy. Since our hiring resumed, the Phoenix Police Department has administered the written exam to more than 5,500 applicants, resulting in the hiring of 421 new positions. Of the new hires, 381 were police recruits, including 40 lateral position hires. Since the start of fiscal year 2016-2017, 109 police recruits and lateral officers have been hired. As applicants register online for the written exam, they're given the option to report their race and gender, as well as declare their status as a veteran of the armed services. As part of the police department's comprehensive hiring plan, the department strives to ensure recruit candidates are qualified, capable, and diverse, and the department remains committed to delivering the highest level of policing services that our residents expect through a diverse workforce that's representative of the communities served. The top section of this table represents a demographic breakdown of new hires for each community segment, while the lower section represents the current makeup of the Phoenix Police Department's sworn demographic. The composition of the recruits and lateral officers hired includes 62.3% white, 5.7% African American, 29.2% Hispanic, and 1.7% Asian. By comparison, the current composition of sworn police department personnel is 74.6% white, 4% African American, 16.9% Hispanic, and 2.7% Asian. In addition, I also have a supplemental handout that has the actual raw data in terms of not just the percentages, but the total numbers, if anybody needs a copy of that. The most recent census data for the state of Arizona indicates that the African American population represents 4.8% of the total population within Maricopa County. African Americans comprise 5% at the county level and 6.5% at the city level. Currently, the Phoenix Police Department is hiring 5.7% African Americans as a percentage of the total new hires, while the current sworn demographic of the police department is 4%. Oops, slide behind here. In 2014, 644 people took the police written exam, with 4.7% reporting as black or black-white. In 2015, 2,030 people took the written exam, with 8.59% reporting as black or black-white. And so far in 2016, 2,854 people have taken the police test, with 9.95% reporting as black or black-white. The Phoenix Police Department Recruitment Unit actively recruits African Americans to register for the monthly written exams through community engagement and as part of the comprehensive recruiting effort. The attended events listed illustrate the outreach effort by the recruitment unit in 2016 to reach the African American community. The Phoenix Police Department Recruitment Unit is actively pursuing the launch of its second year of marketing through a multifaceted advertising campaign strategy. This time-tested approach has yielded positive returns by leveraging a diverse strategy that includes investment in print ads, local newspapers, strategically placed electronic billboards, transit shelter bus cards, and social media. In addition, the police department has reached out to 10 historically black colleges and universities to insert recruitment advertising in both print and electronic format. This list represents the historically black colleges and universities identified to meet our national recruitment strategy for the African American applicants. In addition, there are a couple of new digital media efforts that we're using to reach an even wider spectrum of colleges on a national level. This includes the Handshake database system, as well as NACELink, which is a subscriber site, but it allows for the electronic placement of job postings and recruitment materials directly to these sites within these colleges. The police department utilizes a similar approach to identify, attract, and hire other minority segments of the community, including veterans of the U.S. Armed Services. This list represents some of the military recruitment opportunities that the recruitment unit attends to encourage current and past military members to take the police written exam. And this is part of the ongoing recruitment strategy designed to reach the community's military veteran segment. Data from 2016 identified that 2,854 applicants who took the written police recruit examination yielded 633, or 22.2%, which declared as military veterans. Further data from 2016 revealed that 33% of the new police recruits that were hired were in fact military veterans. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for my colleagues? Vice Mayor?
I think in past, we've learned that our top recruiting tool is other current officers who refer people they know in the community or in their family to apply. Is that still our top way to find new recruits?
Word of mouth tends to be one of our best tools. Technology aside, that still tends to be one of our most valid options. We have a very active group of folks that continue to engage with the community at all levels of the organization, and a lot of times the events that we participate in or attend are some of the best venues for us to be able to spread the word, spread the message, not only here locally but statewide.
Are there any events you attended that stand out as particularly successful in?
I can tell you one of the most recent ones we did was last Friday when we did the class graduation for class 493. We graduated 40 police recruits. This was an all-Phoenix class, and it was really kind of the pinnacle of our hiring efforts for last fiscal year. So when this class graduated, we see those as opportunities where we have large public gatherings to be able to bring our honor guard folks, our police recruitment unit. We bring in information from our reserve unit to be able to set up tables and host events where we can actually draw some foot traffic and get people talking about the job postings.
In any events besides the celebrations that were particularly successful in finding new recruits?
As far as the total numbers of applicants that have come from a specific event or how they actually heard about it, I don't have data that tracks that. But we do keep track of the actual events that we attend. And again, it's usually based on the recollection of the recruitment folks that are there attending the event that will tell us which ones seem to be more productive or had more foot traffic than some of the others.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Pastor?
I have some questions regarding recruitment. And just looking at the demographics, if we're looking at a demographic that's probably one of the areas that I would say, need to concentrate on is the Native American area or demographic. And so has there been any recruitment on the tribes? Have talked to the tribes to see if we can get some recruits to come to Phoenix? Or I know on the Gila River, Salt River, they're on the border, so some majority of them are urban natives. And so what are we doing in that area? And then in the female area, we're still down. And so how do we go about recruiting females?
Well, with regard to the Native American segment, that is still one of our target segments of the community that we're trying to attract interested applicants. They do fall within the advertising strategy that we have to reach all the various segments of the community, whether it be in print form or attending some of their events. I can tell you within the past couple of months, I personally did a radio interview, a recorded session for the Native American community that can be played on podcast for their specific group, really targeting and advertising what we do to make it appealing for the potential recruits to come and test with us. With regard to the female segment, again, we still continue to engage that segment of the community with all of the events that we hold and the events that we attend. We are working with colleges, other professional businesses to get the word out. We do have that segment represented as part of our recruiting team. It's just that we just haven't had as many.
So Councilwoman Pastor, if I may kind of add into the female side of the equation too, we are going to be launching a new publication and a handout that has a series of females in prominent positions in our city and that's going to be launched. We're just kind of waiting for me to kind of onboard to have that happen. We're very much aware of the interest and discussion and need to attract more females, so we'll definitely be ramping that up, as well as having the addition of Marshall Franklin as our Director of Community Services to help us navigate that area a little bit better.
So I guess one of the concerns that I have in this report is that it's not demonstrating all the different demographics of where we're recruiting. And in particular, the three tables that we have are all for African Americans, which I think is fine, but I think it needs to be demonstrated as to all populations of where we're recruiting. We have a lot of Hispanic serving institutes. I'm not sure if we went to Hispanic serving institutions to do some recruitments. So I think the report needs to reflect everything all the good work that has been done.
So Councilwoman Pastor, to your point, you're absolutely and totally right. We were making the effort to answer questions that were posed to us previously, so we'll make sure in the next report that we provide that we give you the wide spectrum of who we've contacted and how.
I think it'll be easier for you because then you don't get these questions.
No worries.
Thank you, Chief.
Well, some of the questions I have is I'd like to find out what is the population of broken down by ethnicity within the city of Phoenix. I'm not sure how many whites, African Americans, Hispanic, Asians, Native Americans that we have, and even females. So maybe next time we can get a little breakdown of that. And also, just looking at it, it seems kind of offset because I believe that there's over 40% Hispanics within the city of Phoenix. And then we're looking at the breakdown right now of about the 2,800 police officers. Over 2,100 are white, about 500 are Hispanic, 114 are African American. We have a little over 76 Asians, about 20 Native Americans, about 365 women, roughly. Just looking at the percentage and
Yep.
stuff.
Minor,
So-
yeah.
So
My number-
I'm just seeing how can we actually, now that we have an opportunity to go out there and recruit new officers, how can we make it seem more like the face of the city of Phoenix when it comes to ethnicity and staff?
So, Mr. Chairman, we will take all that into account for our next report to you. I will say that I love the questions because it helps us re-engage and reaffirm those things that we really need to pay attention to.
All right. Any other questions?
I do have another question. One of the questions is, how many vacant positions still exist based on the current staffing?
That number I do not have in front of me. I'd have to compare that against the hiring plan, but I don't have those numbers here.
That was going to be my next question. How many, what is slated or what is part of the hiring plan? How many are we going to hire this year?
What we have on schedule right now is 145 budgeted positions, and then we just received an additional 50 positions to go along with that, as well as the attrition carryover positions that we have that we've carried over from last month, which still remains around 48 positions. That's being assessed on a monthly basis by BNR, and they're working with us to make sure that that number gets adjusted monthly to reflect the available positions that we have for hire. So we're poised right now to hire roughly between 200 and 250 officers.
Councilmember Williams?
Yeah, 243, I think.
Did you
I don't know if I
actually
had it.
put that many through the academy in this year?
No.
What we've done, we work very closely with the academy because we are not the only agency that's submitting recruits to there. So what we're doing is working to continually revise and tweak the calendar with the academy so that we can make sure that, number one, we have enough classes scheduled for every single month of the year, but also to take advantage of some of the vacancies that are opened by other agencies who can't fill their positions. Those positions, we've been very fortunate to be able to receive extra positions for some of these classes to meet these hiring numbers.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
You can't put that many
So
through.
thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Councilwoman Williams. we can rest assured that if we need those spaces in the academy, that those spaces will be available to us and for us.
And do you hire off of the pending list that you have right now, that you've already put through at least part of the process?
Well, we've already so far hired 109 people just this fiscal year, so we're continuing to work towards that final number at the end of the fiscal year. Our goal is to hire roughly the 250 positions.
Right, but I thought I saw that you had processed more through the interviews and the testing process.
We've had a total, since we started hiring again back in March of 2015, we've had a total of 421 people that have come through that were hired. But that's not just this fiscal year. Just this fiscal year, we've had 109 people that we've hired.
But you've totally processed it. I guess what I want to know, do you have people available on a pending list that you can put into an academy immediately?
Yes, we continue to build out monthly calendars of recruits so that we have them built out anywhere from 2 to 4 months in advance, so that as investigation packets and applicant packets come through our unit, we're able to get them ready to go so that we have them built out in advance. So as soon as we know what our final number is that we can stick in a class, we have a class ready to go.
But I think in answer to your question, we do have a list of people that we pull from consistently and all the
That's what I
time.
wanted. Thank you.
Question?
Councilmember Pastor?
So we hired 109. That means we'll be able to hire 134 by when?
The end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so that's
our
around
fingers
the corner. Okay, got it. Good news.
Any other
A lot
questions?
of work.
One quick question, or
Okay. Vice Mayor?
it was nice to see that a third of the applicants who we hired were military veterans. We, I think, want to be a city that's a veteran-friendly employer and a great place to be a military veteran, and I imagine that has us as one of the leading communities in the country, particularly one that doesn't have a huge percent of our workforce in the city in the military. So among large cities, that must be top tier. Wonderful, congratulations.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you. Now we're on item number 5, I believe it is. Fire Department hiring and recruitment update. Welcome, Chief. Good morning. It's all yours.
Good morning, Chairman Nowakowski and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to update the subcommittee on the fire department's hiring plan. With me today is Assistant Chief Bartee and Deputy Chief Patterson, both of them from our Human Resources Division. They will be presenting the current stats within the fire department. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Nowakowski and members of the subcommittee. For the 2016, I want to represent to you the statistics for 2016-2017 selection and recruitment processes. For the year of 2016 hiring process, we began our recruitment in September of 2015. We had some 2,477 applicants for that recruitment. Of those, we had 1,621 applicants pass the written exam. Successfully, of those, we had 1,089 successful people who are passed and certified on a list that will last for approximately 1 year. To date, we have interviewed some 670 candidates, and we have and are in the process of training 80 firefighter recruits to be trained by the end of 2016, this calendar year. The breakdown of those 80 recruits, and this represents just the minority demographics of this 2016 hiring class. Of this 2016 hiring class, we have 1 Asian Pacific Islander, 11 Black, 4 of those are females, 9 Hispanic, 2 that represent the category of White Hispanic, 1 White Pacific Islander, and 11 veterans. Moving into 2017, our recruitment process opened the month of October, the week of October 3rd. We had 2,047 applicants. We are scheduled to have a written exam for those 2,047 applicants November 16th of this year. We do anticipate hiring 50 of our personnel utilizing a SAFER grant funded. And we anticipate a class start date of spring of 2017.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the subcommittee. I'm going to briefly give you an update on some of our outreach and efforts within the fire department, specifically what our affinity groups are able to do within the community. The strength of our affinity groups, and again, the J.W. Robinson Society, the Valley Emerald Society, the Valley Hispanic Bomberos, the Valley Firefighter Veteran Society, also known as Fire Vets, the Valley Women's Firefighters Society, and Firefighters for Christ. They play a critical role in our recruitment efforts. The strength of these groups is that they are very dedicated members of the department that really care about our recruitment efforts, attracting quality candidates and a really diverse pool of candidates. They spend a lot of their own time and effort not only engaging the community, but participating in these recruitment efforts. They're very inclusive and open to all groups, and the broad goal of the participation of these groups is to reach out to all different ethnic groups to help connect a diverse and well-qualified, well-prepared group to the process so that we can hire the best possible candidates. And so that is the main effort. And in addition, internally, we have a RBO committee, recruitment committee, that largely works to coordinate, collaborate, and cooperatively bring these groups together to share information, share outreach events, and to connect with the fire department management on what the ongoing efforts are to engage the community and really attract the best candidates we can possibly attract. So that's the overall goal of the groups and how they participate within the fire department. And then again, just summarizing our recruitment strategies and outreach, we try to reach out to all the major universities. Specifically, a lot of times we'll approach student athletic departments for candidates, the Maricopa Community Colleges, ethnic student associations, sports programs. The Firefighter 1 and 2 programs are very tied into, obviously, folks that want to pursue a career as firefighters, and we are tied into those groups as well. The Marine Week, Veterans Affairs, our fire vets have gotten very active and more organized, and they're doing a great job of reaching out to different the bases and getting involved in those processes. Again, we plan on hosting another Phoenix Fire Career Day at the PFD Training Academy, which has been a successful outreach. And then our social media campaigns, which are our social network outreach, which is also broadcast in Spanish in some of those groups. And then additionally, just to go over the demographics department-wide, as of November, so including the most recent hiring classes, and these are broken into both by male and female separately. I'll cover the females the next slide. So you can see there the total male numbers are 1,535. American Indian male is 9, American Indian white male 4, Asian male 13, Asian white male 3, black male 107, black white male 11, Hispanic male 277, not specified 8, other blend 9, and Pacific Islander male 4, with the remaining white male at 1,090.
Does other blend mean they claim two ethnicities?
I'm not
Blend
sure.
male. What is that, other blend? I'm reading it as my dad's African American, my mom's white or Anglo, and so I'm reading that they're claiming both ethnicities, or blend male. You know?
It's a non-specific category that it is an option for a selection by the candidate if they choose to categorize themselves. So it can be a blend of any combination.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's how I read it. And non-specified. They just don't want to say. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, just to continue on with our female demographics, our total female firefighters at this time are 76. Again, broken down into demographic classes: American Indian, white female 1, Asian female 1, Asian white female 1, black female 5, black white female 2, Hispanic female 7, and white female 58, and then other blend female, again, that class is 1. And that concludes our demographics stats.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
And what have been our great successes and or most successful partners for recruitment? I assume still also referral from existing firefighters is number one?
Absolutely. Again, utilizing our affinity groups, we have, all of our affinity groups are members of our fire department. So so their referrals and their family members' referrals, all of those are our most successful recruitment efforts.
And anecdotally, it seemed that among our female firefighters, ASU track has been particularly fruitful recruitment. Was that true for the 4 we hired recently or any of them?
I'm sorry, did you say ASU track?
The track team seems
track team?
to be a great recruiting spot for us for firefighters. We must have the fastest fire department.
All, yeah, we want to be fast. No, all of the athletic outreach, that we do at the different colleges is a great opportunity for us to attract, well-qualified people. And I'm not sure on those 4 if they were on the ASU track team or not.
That's an unfair question, I suppose. We had a great event where we were installing smoke alarms in District 8, and I think there must have been 80 people from Paradise Valley Community College Fire Program. I had no idea how large. I assume not everyone in the community college got up at 8 in the morning to come to District 8. It must be an enormous program.
Yeah, again, and that's a lot of our outreach with the affinity groups that get involved. Like I mentioned, the community outreach and the community involvement is one of the great strengths of when we tie our folks in together. A lot of our firefighters are instructors at the colleges, so you get that combination of tied in, networking through the colleges and the affinity groups when they have these events. It's a great opportunity for us to get the potential candidates out there and engage in the community, because that's something that we really value as a fire department, is that community involvement. So we want to expose them to that early.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question. Can you go back to page 3? So we have a breakdown here, but also, how many were actually hired during 2016 firefighters? Because we just have the minority breakdown here.
The total was 80.
80.
For 2016. Yeah, we did just display the minority demographics on that slide.
And then when it says veterans, is that just minority veterans, or is that veterans in general?
That's veterans in general.
All right. And then maybe next time we can have how many of these individuals that are maybe broken down in the minority group are veterans. So it's kind of confusing, because when I add it up, we have about 39 minorities that were out of the 80, but then when you talk about veterans, they can actually be a combination of all different. So it's not, it might be only 28 out of the 80 that were minority. So I'm just trying to figure out what are the true numbers of the hiring class of 2006 broken down. And then the other thing is that maybe we can just have those numbers a little bit more clear on the number of people, the percentage overall, and the and for next time, think this out. And veterans, just if we can actually put down Asian Pacific Islanders, 2 veterans or so we kind of understand where our veterans are coming from. So we're not just gapping everything. So when we add things up, it kind of adds up correctly.
Absolutely, we will be able to do that for you. This particular slide does represent a mix, because there was carryover between the individual categories. As you said, the veterans aren't broken down into specific minority groups, and then the females on this particular slide aren't broken down into specific minority groups, but we can clear that up for you next time.
Alrighty, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Now we're on item number 6, 2017 State of Federal Agenda.
Good morning. I'm Tom Remus with the Office of Government Relations. With me today is John Wayne Gonzalez, who manages our state program, and James Orlowski, who manages our federal program. We're here today to provide a brief update on our proposed state and federal agenda with topics that fall under this subcommittee. Today we're looking for input from you to include in our final report that we'll be bringing to the December policy meeting. The items included in our agenda are submitted by the city departments. Additionally, we either have met or will be meeting with you or your office staff to discuss these issues and see if there's anything else that you'd like to add. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to John Wayne to start with our state program.
Good morning. As we begin the, good morning. So as we begin the state legislative session, I'd like to share with you the principles that we start every session with. And of course, those relate to opposing any kind of legislation that puts unfunded mandates on the city. We definitely want to preserve our local control. And really important, these next two items, revenue sharing. These are dollars that the state has to share with the cities as part of their revenue stream, and that's a large portion of our budget, our general fund budget. And then finally, given what's going on with the water situation in the Colorado River, definitely focused on making sure that we're doing all we can to have a seat at the table and being part of any type of legislation when we're talking about water issues. And that's a big issue for Phoenix. On this slide, and Mr. Chair, based on your feedback on the need to continue support for public safety funding, definitely this is going to be always part of our agenda. For example, state shared revenue, as I had mentioned, that is more than $300 million that comes to the city annually, an estimated $300 million. And of course, 70% of that money goes towards public safety purposes. So that's really important. We currently receive about $1 million for the Internet Crimes Against Children program. And that is something that has just started in the last 2 years, and we definitely want to continue to see those funds coming into the police department to do that hard work. And then we receive annually $1.4 million for the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center. Now, although that is overseen by the Department of Public Safety, I'm sure we have, our police department does a lot of the work and probably most of the staffing for that agency. So these are definitely a highlight of some of these dollars that we need to continue to protect. And then the other state item, for the last couple of years, the city has refocused on this issue. As you're aware, the state has a 911 excise tax. It was established in 2001, and those monies are collected by the state and then distributed to the different type of public safety areas in the state, Phoenix being one of them. What has happened is that the revenues from that stream, that tax stream, have reduced, have gone down, and it's not meeting the demands that Phoenix has or the state has. So we have been working, council gave us the authority to begin working on this last year. We're still working on trying to work with the state to figure out going forward, how do we get enough revenues out to everyone to meet the needs of technology and equipment that's changing all the time. And so that is something that we definitely want to continue to pursue that effort. And if there are no other questions on the state public safety items, I'll hand it over to Mr. Orlowski.
Councilmember Williams?
You are talking very broad areas.
Sure.
Are you going to come back with specific items? Because I know we have kind of a watch list that we want you to monitor. So if something pops up, I mean, we've already talked about potential towing legislation, animals, DOC, surprises with the MRC, and I believe every year there's some type of health legislation for public safety that we need to support and make sure. Pawn shops is always a challenge, domestic violence. I mean, the list goes on and on. I just want to make sure that, although you're talking very broadly, there's very specific things that I could easily just list off that are of great concern to us. Not only we want you to watch and protect us, but maybe initiate some changes to strengthen them. You're shaking your head, yes? so-
Mr. Chair and Councilwoman Williams, these are definitely important issues. As you know, there are different issues that get dropped by the legislature every year, and we engage on those issues. Some of the things you mentioned, I know, for example, pawn shops, some of the legislators that pursue that legislation are not going to be around. So it's unclear. But I guess to answer your general question, as we see a lot of these bills that are coming affect city operations or the concerns of public safety in general, we definitely will bring that back to the mayor and council, and we'll definitely get your feedback and your take on what direction you'd like staff to go.
Well, I don't want it to just be reactive. I think in some areas, we need to initiate it. So,
Mr. Chairman, Councilwoman Williams, we'll include in the final report that comes to you in December some of these issue areas that you brought up with us today. We'll outline them with some parameters, because I know that's always a concern with the mayor and council and directing and giving us authority. But we'll outline some of those issues that you've seen before and we expect to see again. And we'll ask at that time for a position to either support or oppose. That way you could be on the record. But as Mr. Gonzalez mentioned, during the legislative session, we'll always make sure to come back to you for clarification and authority as items come up as well. But we'll take your suggestions and make sure to include them in the report. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
One thing that I think is important to many of us is to make sure that the State Liquor Board understands and respects input from our city and our police detectives in particular. They work very hard on research when we get new liquor license applicants, and so from my perspective, it would be great if we can enhance the value and the respect given to the input from our police department. We had an adverse decision from the State Liquor Board on a strip club liquor license in my district last week, and it reminded me that we just need to continue to talk about how much local knowledge we have and that our police department works very hard on these cases and should be respected.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Vice Mayor, we will include that as well. Thank you.
And then the Arizona State Hospital is within District 8, and I understand they're going to be going forward with some funding requests, and your team gratefully joined me and our consultants for a visit there, but many of those are security related, and I think it would be a win for both our police and fire department who visit regularly if they have the tools they need to keep their residents safe.
Thank you.
Alrighty, next is federal.
Great, thanks, Chair and members of the subcommittee. Just to start off with, similar to on the state side, we also have federal guiding principles, very much in line with what you heard from John Wayne on the state side. So we talk about promoting fiscal sustainability, which is supporting the city's fair share of federal funding, as well as trying to repel any unfunded mandates that might impact the city. Then we also talk about, of course, protecting local authority and making sure that there aren't efforts to preempt decisions that are being made at the local level. The issues that we have in the police department portion of our federal agenda are broadly grouped into two areas. One is the public safety grants that the city has really relied on in the past. And when we talk about that, we talk about the COPS grants that we've been successful in getting that help us in staffing with our police department, as well as some of the Office of Justice Programs grants that we've pursued successfully in the past. And when you talk about some of those grants, that includes the DNA grants that we've gotten, also the Sex Assault Kit Initiative grants that we received, as well as you heard John Wayne mention the Internet Crimes Against Children funding that we get from the state. We also get funding from the federal government. And so we want to continue to pursue those funding streams and make sure that they're preserved for cities and towns. And then the other category that I would say in addition to that are what I would consider technology enhancements. The big one that's called out are obviously body-worn cameras and looking for ways that we can get federal funding to expand deployment of body cameras to first responders in the police department. And then police has also recommended, and the information is in your packet, some other technology enhancements that would help them sort of streamline their processes. That includes digital evidence collection and business analytics as just a couple of examples. On the fire department side, what we're really talking about here, again, is the grants that we rely on that we get from the Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA. And so, again, we talk about staffing, which is the SAFER grant that we've been successful in pursuing, as well as training and equipment, which we get funding for through the AFG grant program, and also the Fire Prevention and Safety Program. Also, of course, Urban Search and Rescue, which Phoenix has been a participant in, and gets funding for that as well. In the area of Homeland Security, again, we're really focused on the grant funding, and in this area, it's UASI, which is the Urban Area Security Initiative. Phoenix gets somewhere in the order of $5 million on an annual basis, and so what we're really focused on in this area is maintaining our ranking and the funding that comes along with that, and also making sure that the information that gets passed to the federal government in terms of risk is correctly captured and interpreted by the federal government. The Regional Wireless Cooperative also submitted this item. It's the public safety microwave radio interference issue. And essentially what it is there is an entity that's pursuing a waiver through the FCC. And what they're looking to do is to bring some new technology online dealing with Internet of Things. And essentially what the concern is from the RWC is that that technology essentially uses the same frequency band that our public safety department relies on. And so they foresee that there could be some issues with interference there. And so we want to make sure that as the FCC is considering that application for a waiver, that the RWC's voice is heard. And so they're looking at weighing in on that, and we want to support their efforts in that regard. Finally, the last issue that we have for you today on the federal side is the domestic violence programs and funding that we receive from the federal government. And really what we're talking about here is supporting funding to combat domestic violence. And so that takes a couple of different forms. There's the Violence Against Women Act funding that the city receives, also the Victims of Crime Act funding. And so we want to make sure that, as we continue to sort of see an increase in domestic violence issues, that funding is maintained, if not increased, to meet that rising need. And so we want to continue to pursue that funding and defend it against any cuts. With that, I'll pass it back to Tom, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have about the federal program.
Chairman, subcommittee members, if there's anything that we've missed, there's still an opportunity, whether it's today or as we lead towards the December policy meeting. So if there's other items that you believe that we should include, refine, add, please let me or the rest of our team know, and we're happy to do that. With that, we're available for any questions you might have of what's been presented today.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
Congratulations to your office as well as Police and Fire on a very successful year in pursuing federal grants that will go a long way to serve our community and make sure we get our fair share of tax dollars back. So hope we will continue our pretty significant record of success, and congratulations. As we talk about intergovernmental affairs, I also think we should talk a little bit about the county, and they're an important partner for us on public safety. There may be some transitions coming to the county, and as we have a new sheriff come in, likely it would be good to continue to talk about jail costs, which have been escalating ahead of inflation, and just making sure that we work in partnership with them to manage that cost, because I think most of us would rather spend public safety dollars hiring new folks than on escalating jail costs.
Chairman, Vice Mayor, thank you.
Any other questions? Concerns? I just wanted to really comment on Jim on having that tour. We were talking about, James, about Homeland Security, and I think we got some of the greatest facilities here in the city of Phoenix when it comes to Homeland Security, but our ranking has gone down. So I think it's really important that we look at our congressmen and our senators to come take a tour of our facility, to see it's not just the city of Phoenix, but it's really statewide, and how we really empower the whole state with this facility that we have, and that we need to figure out why our ratings went down. And the reason that we're so concerned about the ratings, it's the funding also. It's a formula that they have, so our funding also went down when it comes to Homeland Security. Being so close to the border and being a major hub when it comes from Mexico into the rest of the United States, Phoenix is that stopping point. So I think it's really important for us to let our congressional delegation know that the importance of bringing up that rank and making sure we get our fair share when it comes to Homeland Security funding. Thank you. Councilmember Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I didn't see mentioned in here is the courts, and we now have some specialty courts that are very innovative, and they connect to community services, and I would like to see us somehow pursue some funding and strengthen their ability, because they're being successful, but if they had more resources, they would be even more so. So I would like you to talk with the courts, the specialty judges, and see what's missing and or what could be strengthened. Thank you.
Can I add on to the courts as well?
Absolutely. Vice
The
Mayor.
Fair Justice for All Task Force that our Chief Justice, or at the state level convened, had a lot of recommendations, some of which will require state legislative action, and I think it's valuable that we be engaged in that process as well. Many of them support programs that came out of the city of Phoenix, and it would be great to have state support for the good work that our court system is doing. And on my earlier comments with the county, also, I did not mean to, it sounded as if I might be supporting Tent City, and I did not mean to do that, because I think that's been something where we might be able to, by closing that, reduce exposure to lawsuits, which are then passed on to Phoenix and county taxpayers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.
Alrighty, next is, we're going to be continuing item number 7. So we'll go to item number 8, Public Safety Budget Update. I guess police is up first.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. Jill Salaya for the Police Department. I will be presenting the budget through the end of September. For this fiscal year, our budget is $609 million. We have spent $155 million, which we are right on budget right now of 25%. For the month of September, we're a little higher than the previous year through September, but we actually had 3 pay periods in September. Whoops, I'm not good with this clicker. Our top 10 expenditures they continue to be a lot of personnel type cost. Overtime is a little higher than last year, and that's due to some of the protests that we had this summer, and also the serial shooter, the investigations for that. And then sworn clothing allowance is higher than last year due to the restoration of the clothing allowance due to the MOUs. And then finally, our revenues that we have collected, we're pretty much on target with each item except for, it looks like, vehicle impound, and that has to do with our auction share and the scrap metal costs going down. And that is it. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Fire.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. I'll be presenting for the Fire's budget for September. We have a $317 million budget, and at this point, at 25% of the year, we are just slightly underspent. Actually, go back to the last slide. I wasn't looking up there, but we're just slightly under our target, or pretty much where we expected. And then in the monthly expenditures, backed up. There are 3 areas. We're actually slightly over in September where we were last year. 3 areas that we'll talk about on the next slide, which are largely pensions, vehicle maintenance, and an equipment purchase that put us over in September. And then here's the running list as it goes down. And largely like the police department, it's mostly salaries. Pensions are slightly up, as well as equipment management charges. And then lastly, the one that really sticks out is motor vehicles. We purchased a new ladder truck, so that's really what drove the monthly expenditures, a little more than what they were in the previous year. Again, with revenues collected, our ambulance system is trending just a little higher than we were last year. We're at about $600,000 over. And the dispatch fees for both the actual dispatches and maintenance costs, they're right on target in their cost recovery. That's what we have. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you. Court system.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee. The municipal court's budget this fiscal year is a little over $28 million. You can see that through the end of the first quarter, we spent about 6.7, which represents, with both of the fellow departments here, being right at or slightly under, about 1% under in terms of this year's budget, what's been spent. If you look at the monthly expenditures, we can see that we're actually up slightly in total year over year. But again, if you look at those expenditures as related to this year's budget, again, tracking slightly below. So not at all out of balance with what we've expected. In terms of the largest driver in costs, again, it is personnel costs, both in the pension and the salaries area. Revenues. So we continue to see the interesting story that we've been talking about now. Actually, I guess now this interesting story has been the same and dating back for well over the year that we've been doing this. We continue to see reductions in revenues, again, in our mind, pretty clearly related to a continuing reduction in the number of filings that come into the court across the board. Interestingly, that is not just a Phoenix issue. That is something that is happening across the state of Arizona. We had a reference a few minutes ago to the Supreme Court's Fair Justice for All Task Force. This is one of the things, I was honored to be a member of that task force. This is one of the things that we looked at to put in the context of some of these other issues. That's some statewide figures were brought together. We see that happening on a statewide basis, and interestingly, see that actually nationwide. We have seen a trending down in terms of the number of citations that are being issued at the local and state level across the country. And honestly, I have not seen anybody with sort of a unified theory about exactly why that's happening, but nevertheless, that's what we're seeing. And again, a direct result on the revenues as they come in. You can see that's a significant variance. If we look at the total for the year being down 31%, I can tell you also that that is masked somewhat by having found a new stream of revenue, if you will, by the Compliance Assistance Program that I'll give you an update on just a second. Were it not for that program, and that program successfully bringing in a lot of dollars that were previously in the uncollectible pot, that variance would be even greater. A quick update on that program, because it's important to what we're talking about here. As of the end of business yesterday, our total number of participants had exceeded 9,600. We are, as expected, marching down to pretty quickly hitting 10,000, which is, I think, a hugely exciting number. As we march down to that, which I think will happen in the next couple of weeks, we are planning some extended and additional outreach activities. We continue to find that the most of what is happening in this regard is coming from word of mouth advertisement among people. We're continuing to try and find ways to get that out. We're working right now with Channel 11, coming up with a couple of video spots where we have actually identified individuals who were more than happy to speak to us about their individual stories and what the Compliance Assistance Program has meant for them. And we really want to see this threshold of hitting 10,000 kind of as just the first step in what we expect to be a long history of finding everybody who's in this position that would benefit from it. And then again, as we've discussed, although it was not the initial point of the Compliance Assistance Program, it has been a solid economic boon to the city. Since inception at the end of January, about $4.7 million that has actually been collected, again, of part of that previous spot that we talked about, Councilwoman Williams, that was sitting out there of people who had not been paying, some of them for as far back as 27 years. With about another $5 million that has actually been activated on payment plans that we expect to come in over the next couple of years. So again, a solid start. And with that, I would also be open for any questions.
Any questions or comments about the budget? I just want to thank you all for each month giving us an update. Chief Williams, we created this report at the end of our subcommittee to be good stewards of our tax dollars and to make sure that just during budget time, we're not just talking about our budgets with public safety. And it's a good way for us to actually fine-tune stuff if we need to fine-tune or look at where extra costs are so we can allocate it for our future budget. And I just really want to thank you all for being good stewards and understanding that there was a 3 pay period in September, and that's where numbers are off from last year, but we're still on target. And even that we bought a ladder that we had that allocated throughout the year, it'll even off. And with the thinking outside the box and creative ways of collecting money and improving our AR is going to help us in the city of Phoenix, so thank you all. With that, we have future agenda items.
Chair,
Yes. Councilmember Pastor.
I would like to have an update on the serial killer and where we are and information on it. I'm getting asked by the community.
Absolutely. Any other future agenda items? Councilmember Williams?
Thank you. I would like to have a report on, is it the CAD system, the computer system? We were having so many problems with a year ago and getting our training, and there was a discussion about even going back and asking them to rebate some money or pay for the additional expenses, and I've never heard what happened. So if we could have a report on that, I'd appreciate it.
Any other?
Are you referring to RMS?
Whatever that new system is you put in.
Okay. Okay.
And I'd be interested in an update on our RICO program.
RICO funds. Anything else? With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.